welcome everybody. Thanks so much for coming. My name is Ellen Burns. I'm going to be your MC today. And before we begin, I'd like to introduce Central Councillor Belinda Coates to do our acknowledgement of country.
Thanks, Alan, and so nice to see a great turnout. Look at you all coming out on a cold Sunday afternoon. So nice to be here. As Alan said, I'm a Central Ward councillor here at City of Ballarat, and it's my great pleasure to be here for my Electric Home Forum. Thanks, Lloyd, for joining us. And so I'll acknowledge that we're here on Wadawurrung country here in Ballarat and pay my respects and our respects to elders past and present, and particularly acknowledge any First Nations, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community members with us here today. It's an important day. It's the beginning of NAIDOC week, actually, and I will put in my early apologies. I've been to an event beforehand and I'm heading to a NAIDOC week exhibition soon after, so I encourage you to check out Tammy Gilson, local Wadawurrung woman exhibition at Art Gallery of Ballarat in the backspace there too. And I will just pause for a moment to acknowledge the connection that all First Nations people and cultures around the world have to land and country and the importance of that. And I think it's really important to reflect on that when we're at an environmental forum like this, that it really is over the past 200 years that we've become so disconnected from the importance of the land, the waterways, the air we breathe, and using our resources wisely. So I hope you get a lot out of the forum today. I'm sure Lloyd is a wealth of information, and it's never been a more important time, has it, for all the important reasons I know that you all know about and that I'm passionate about, going harder and faster on climate action, getting all levels of community and business to move in a positive direction, and all levels of government to moving away from dependence on fossil fuels for a better future for all of us. So thanks for coming, and thanks for joining us, Lloyd, and thank you to BREAZE for organising as well. City of Ballarat's proud to support, along with DECA and the Regional Sustainability Alliance Ballarat. So I'll hand back to Alan. Thanks one and all.
Thanks so much, Belinda. And now we're going to hear from BREAZE President Mary DeBrett about what's coming up in the land of BREAZE.
Thanks everybody for coming along today to hear about how to get off gas. It's just so important. Our name, BREAZE, Ballarat Renewable Energy and Zero Emissions, pretty much spells out what we're about. And most of you probably know we've been around for a while, since 2007. We're a volunteer-run registered charity, probably best known for our social solar program, where we fundraise to put renewable resources into the homes and the properties of not-for-profits, largely social housing. It's social justice and climate action. We also do quite a bit of advocacy at federal, state and local level. We've made several submissions on the Ballarat Zero Emissions Plan, which was endorsed by Council last year, and we're totally committed to that 2030 target. It's ambitious, but we're fully committed to that. We also support sustainable living across the region through our monthly talks, Smart Living Ballarat, hosted by Ellen, and Ballarat Green Drinks, and events like this one, with the synergy of cutting energy costs and cutting greenhouse emissions being particularly compelling. We've got a few more events coming up on this theme in August, July. On the 20th of July, we've got, can we change the slide? We've got Ballarat Green Drinks. At Ballarat Green Drinks, we've got award-winning designer builder Ronnie Reisenweber talking about environmentally sustainable design and how you can lower your carbon footprint and have a comfortable home and save on energy costs. Now that's at the Much Grapes Hotel on the 20th of July, 6:30 to 8 p.m. You can book by tribal people, just rock up, we don't mind. On the 26th of July, we've got a Smart Living Ballarat talk, 12:30 to 1:30, Barclay Square, on how to use the thermal imaging camera that the City of Ballarat just recently acquired. It's some we're crafts are in your home. And Ballarat Tool Library also use if you want to retrofit and be more energy efficient. That's on the 26th of July. On the 10th of August, we're running an event at Commerce Ballarat's B31 Festival, how to make your business energy efficient. And that will be hosted by Ellen, and we'll have Vic Energy Scorecard Assessor, Dale Boucher, talking energy efficiency for all budgets. If you want to find out more about that, the B31 brochure is on the desk at the front, I guess it's the front of the room, the back of the room. During July and September, we'll be running a 3-month workshop for people who are doing it tough on how to make your home energy efficient on retrofitting homes. And that will be run by 2 Energy Scorecard assessors, Dale Boucher and Tim Driley. And it'll be open to everybody, so if you are interested in that or you know of somebody who's a potential candidate, please spread the word. The dates are not confirmed yet, but the information will be in our e-newsletter and on our website and our Facebook site. If you're not signed up to the BREAZE newsletter, you can do so at the desk on the end there. And we also have postcards that you've probably seen about the programs that we're offering through Smart Living Ballarat and Ballarat Green Drinks. This event today, we're not just virtue signalling. We know it's really complicated when you live in an old home, as many of us do, getting on gas. Planning how to make that transition when the old appliances expire takes a lot of planning. But what better time to start than now? Thanks.
Thank you, Mary. And a lot of you may have heard that the base rate for gas is going up 20 to 25% this week at the start of the new financial year. So what better time to be getting off gas? Before I introduce Lloyd, I would like to thank our sponsors again for today. Belinda mentioned them briefly. The City of Ballarat, of course, the Regional Sustainability Alliance Ballarat, and DECA, the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action. If you have any questions, we will be doing a Q&A at the end of the session, so keep them in mind and we'll get to them afterwards. But now I'd like to introduce Lloyd Heathfield from the Yarra Energy Foundation.
Do you reckon I need this? Can you hear me at the back? Definitely need it? Alright. Hi, thanks for having me everyone. Amazing turnout. This is probably the biggest one of these I've ever done, so that's awesome. Yeah, just quickly, I'm Lloyd from the Yarra Energy Foundation. I'll explain a little bit about who we are just quickly to give you a bit of context, but today I'm just going to be talking about energy efficiency and an all-electric home. So who are we? The Yarra Energy Foundation, we're a small not-for-profit. We're based in Fitzroy, in Melbourne. And we work with communities, we work with local councils to help them, reduce emissions and reduce their bills all at the same time. And you see on the right here, this is our little baby, our community battery that we installed in Fitzroy North last year. It made some headlines and news, so you may have seen it before, but yeah, that's who we are. And then, more importantly about today, what I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to be talking about a little bit on your home's energy efficiency, because you can't ignore that in this subject. You have to focus on that as well. But I probably need a whole hour to go over that, so it's just a little touch, and I'll show you some resources you can go to do some more research. Then I'll briefly touch on why we need to go all electric. I'm sure a lot of you already know, but it's a pretty important thing that's making a lot of headlines at the moment, and we need to leave gas behind, as we've already heard this morning. What are the benefits? Obviously, both economical and environmental. I'll then touch on what rebates you can claim from the governments, both state and federal level, and I'll also touch on how to plan your transition, which is the big one, right? All right, so firstly, Australian homes, they really, really need to improve. So the average household is spending around $5,200 every year on energy. and that's split into electricity, gas, and petrol there. So petrol and diesel is obviously a big chunk of that. And maybe this study was done before COVID. So we're probably driving less, we're spending a bit more time at home, so your electricity and your gas bills are likely higher, And the thing to think about is when we're spending that much on energy, our homes really are performing so poorly. And it's something that we need to try and crack down on, because it can really make a difference in your home. So the average Australian home has an energy rating of 2 out of 10, which is pretty shocking, really shocking. I've got a friend, he's from Sweden. He's from the northern part of Sweden, where the sun doesn't even come up for like 3 months of the year, right? And he's never been as cold as when he came here. It's pretty shocking to think about. He couldn't believe how cold he was in Australia. So improving the energy efficiency of your home, it can really help lower your bills. It can really, improve your overall health and comfort as well. And pretty shocking to think about insulating your home. You can save up to 45% on energy bills if you have, most homes have little to no insulation. These old, weatherboard homes, which I'm sure a lot of us live in. I myself live in one. And then even draft proofing and double glazing really goes a long way as well. Obviously it's going to become more extreme. We've seen it, bushfires and crazier winters. This is increasing illnesses and health issues across the country. And also burning gas can really lead to health issues, which I'll touch on a bit more later. So like I said, energy efficiency really is crucial. Obviously electrification is what I'm going to be talking about mainly today, but really encourage you to think about the efficiency of your homes as well, because 2005 is when energy efficiency standards were introduced in this country, which is very late. Like 85% of homes were built before that, so basically 85% of Australian homes were built with no energy standards, which is crazy. So houses built before this, they've got little or no insulation, they've got drafts, air leaks everywhere. If you were to add up in the average home all the cracks and the little nooks and crannies in your home, the average adds up to the size of a foot, which is pretty shocking. If you had a football-sized hole in your wall, you'd get that fixed pretty quick, Real thin, poor quality windows, and full of inefficient electrical appliances as well. So like I said, this isn't the main topic of today's talk, but the key areas to address: draft proofing, insulation is a huge one, and also windows. Obviously not everyone can afford double glazing, but getting a good set of blinds or curtains really goes a long way. And so if you're interested in learning more, Sustainability Victoria's got heaps of information on how to do this. So I really recommend you go to the Sustainability Victoria website and check that out, and it will really keep you informed on what to do in your home. Okay, so just briefly, I'm sure a lot of you guys already know, but I speak to a lot of people on the phone, all day, every day, and people don't even realise what they're paying for on their bills. So I think I'll just touch on this really quick. So we're charged per kilowatt hour on our bills, right? So what is a kilowatt hour? If you can think of electricity, like a water flow, the actual kilowatts is how much you turn that tap on. That's how much water is coming out that pipe. And what we're charged for is the bottom one, energy. That's how much is, after you've been using it for an hour at that set rate, that's how much you're going to be charged for. So it's important to think about, you're being charged for the energy, not the power usage, right? So, we're charged per kilowatt hour, that's the energy consumption. So what does that equate to? Obviously, it's a load of different things depending on the efficiency of the appliance, but just to give you a rough idea, it's one load of washing, 40 minutes of a 1.5k heater, 15 kettle boils, 143 hours of LED light globes, or, like I'm going to be touching on a lot today, 5 kilowatt hour of hot water energy from a hot water heat pump. So, just to give you a rough idea of understanding your energy and your power there. Okay, so just quickly, out of interest, we've got a pretty big audience, so let's see. How many people have solar currently installed at their property? Okay, wow, that's awesome. I can skip a whole chunk of the presentation. How many people have modified their home to be more energy efficient? So kind of the stuff I touched on. You guys are amazing, wow. And is there anyone here that's already got an all-electric home? Nice, nice. Alright, so now we're into the nitty gritty. Why transition to an all-electric home? So powering our homes and our vehicles, that makes up 42% of Australia's domestic emissions. That's, a huge chunk. And so, the vast majority of that is coming from cars, space heating, and our water heating. These are the three main ones. Obviously, cars is a bit of a harder one to change at the moment, but the space heating and the water heating are very simple and quick to change, right? And this is costing, average Australian households between 5 and 6k every year. That's a lot of money, right? That's a substantial amount of money, especially for those in the lower socioeconomic bracket, where it becomes, a far bigger chunk of their income. So when we look at our greenhouse gas emissions here, you can see nearly 80% is coming from energy, right? And that's just machines that are burning fossil fuels. So everything from the power plants that are burning those fuels to your gas water heater in your home, right? And so here's another chart of just the share. I'm sure you guys have all seen this before, but just to put it into perspective, the average home, I think this was a 2014 study, so still a bit. You can see by far the vast majority of heating and water heating, and that's mainly in Victoria where we've got ducted gas heating, which is just everywhere, right? So let's talk about gas really quick. Just over my water. So Victoria is using more gas than any other state or territory, and again, it's because of that ducted gas heating in the winter. We really like to ramp that thing and turn it on, like today probably. And households and small businesses are by far the biggest contributor to this gas usage. So, we're the ones that we can make a difference, and we can replace that gas and sort that out, right? And like I said, this is spiking heavily in winter. So that's just because of ducted gas heating, and we like warmer, longer showers, probably when it's cold outside, right? So, why are we leaving gas behind? I mean, it's pretty given. Obviously been touching on the start, gas is going to be soaring up in the next financial year, or this financial year, sorry. And they're going to continue to rise. They're not coming down anytime soon. Like you'll hear people say, oh, COVID, oh, the war in Ukraine. They're not going to change, it's going to keep going up. I've got a graph that will put this into perspective later. But the gas prices are going to remain high. And also important to think about, you're charged $320 minimum every year just to be connected to the gas supply, right? That's obscene, it should be illegal, but you are. Even if you don't use it, even if you're not living in that property for a whole year, you're still charged that connection fee. So ditching gas and cutting it off, you automatically save $350 every year. So the big one for me, obviously gas is a fossil fuel. There's no ifs or buts about it. Burning it directly contributes to the climate crisis, there's no question. Before my time, gas was touted as a clean fuel and a great alternative to coal, but these new studies are coming out looking into gas fugitives emissions, so the emissions released from mining it, processing it, transporting it. And the reality is it's not that much better than coal. At the end of the day, there's so much methane released when you're fracking and removing that gas from the ground. It's extremely detrimental to the environment. And look, why we need to leave it behind? The alternatives are already here. The technology's here. It's good to go. It's cheaper. It's more efficient. It's safer. It's better in every single way, and it can happen now. And also, I mean, most of you already are, which is amazing. You can produce your own clean electricity from your roof. So it's just a real no-brainer at the moment. Finally, environmental action is becoming economically viable, which is just, great. So with just a few household decisions, you can reduce your carbon footprint while saving heaps and heaps of money, and that's just through electrification. It's really as simple as that. So I'm going to be using a lot of Rewiring Australia's images because they're a fantastic organisation. I'm sure a lot of you have seen a lot of these pictures before, but highly recommend you check out the org if you're not familiar. But yeah, we've of course spent decades and decades of advice to reduce, reuse, recycle, because it's easy to market waste, right? It's easy to tell people to get rid of their waste because no one likes it. By no means am I saying stop recycling. Please continue to recycle. the fact of the matter is, your actual climate impact is done by a few small, infrequent decisions made in your home. That's what's on your roof. Again, you guys are smashing that already. You know, what's in your garage, if you've got an EV or not. What's on the side of your house, if you've got, you know, heat pumps for your heating and your cooling and your hot water. And what's in your kitchen, if you're cooking with gas or you're cooking with induction. And these are the 4 decisions that basically determine what your personal climate impact is. So let's just look at a quick comparison. On the left here, that's the full fossil fuel home, obviously. Grid electricity, petrol, diesel car, gas heating, gas hot water, gas cooking. And then on the right here is obviously what we're all striving for, right? The all-electric home, rooftop solar and a battery, an EV, a reverse cycle, a hot water heat pump, and an induction cooktop. And you can see those running costs, right? It's pretty substantial. And then at the bottom there, it's the real kicker, right? Those emissions as well. And look, by no means, I'm probably the furthest away from the one on the right up here, judging by those polls. I'm in a full fossil fuel home still, so you know it's obviously I'm renting, so it is hard for me. But there's no shame. A lot of people I speak on the phone to, they feel left out and they feel like, oh well, I'm so far behind. You know, my neighbour's got an EV, my neighbour's got solar. Like now's the time to really start going and making those changes. So, I'll touch on those rebates that are available later, because you can really save a lot of money to put them in and then save a lot of money over the long run as well. So obviously a lot of these numbers are including vehicles, and I understand vehicles are a bit of a hard one, a bit of a tough cookie to address. So let's just ignore vehicles for a moment and look at converting an existing home with solar panels. So a lot of you might have that, solar panels, but still gas appliances. So you can save, on average, this is 6 people, right? So we'll save around $1,250 every year from going from gas home to an all-electric home. And that's, on top of the $950 you get from your solar system on your roof. So that's, 2.2 in savings every year from an all-electric home with solar. And a battery can add even more, right? So here's that graph I was looking at. When we look at the fossil fuel prices, look, you can see in 1990, very, very cheap, but you can see the pattern. What I'm trying to show is, fossil fuel prices are not steady. They never have been, they never will be. They're increasing and have been for the past, 30, 40 years. And so that means our savings, they continue to grow and compound themselves. So the earlier you get in, the more you're going to save in the long run, right? It's just, it's truly a no-brainer. When you look at the graphs and look at the numbers, they don't lie, right? It is what it is. And by 2050, I'm sure no one will be using gas. But if you're still using gas 2030, it's going to be so much more expensive than it is now. It's just going to keep going up and up and up. So, a lot of you have solar power, so I'll go through this one a bit quickly. So that's actually a solar system I installed about 2.5 years ago. It's pretty proud of that one, actually. It's quite nice. So look, Australia is the place for solar. As you can tell by my accent, I'm from the UK, where we don't know what the sun is. But here it's got so much sun. It's all year round, pretty much, apart from today. But it's so strong and it's always there, right? And you're going to be producing energy. And your government made it so cheap and easy to install solar. It's a no-brainer, but you guys already, nearly 100% of you guys have solar already, so that's good. It's the cheapest energy in the world. I'm sure you guys knew that Australian rooftop solar is by far the cheapest home energy in the world, which is pretty shocking. Costing around 3 cents per kilowatt hour over the course of its lifetime, right, in comparison to what, 25, 26 cents for electricity, grid electricity. And there's a graph just to show that, right? 28 cents is a bit high, maybe, but still, night and day, right? It's not even comparable. Not even comparable there. So, even if there was a power plant generating free energy, your rooftop solar is still cheaper than that because you're not paying any transmission and distribution costs. So it's the best option is to power as much of your home from your roof as you can. It's going to be the cheapest energy you'll ever have, and by far the best option. So why install solar? Again, a lot of you already have, so we'll try and go quite quickly here. Great for the environment. It can help you reduce your energy bills. You know, you can expect between a 30 and 60% reduction in your electricity bills from installing solar. They can be heavily subsidised, still will be, for quite some time yet, but the longer you leave it, the less you're going to get off, because they drop it every year. So, you know, the earlier you get it, the more money you're going to save. And look, our homes are only become more electric, right? We're going to be consuming more electricity in our homes as we get off gas. So the more energy, electricity you can generate from your roof, the better, right? And solar smugness, it's real, guys. Honestly, a lot of people, you know, they get their mates around at the barbecue. They've just got their fresh solar system installed, and they've got their first bill. They like to rub it in. It's real. So, expected prices of solar, again, you guys probably all know. But you're looking at about $1,000 per kilowatt, right? That's the standard. And try to be careful of too good to be true prices, because they usually are. Like, I worked as a solar installer for about 3.5 years. I was on both sides of the fence. I was in one of those dodgy cowboy companies at the start, and then moved to a pretty decent one. And yeah, it's try and avoid the ones that are super, super cheap, because they're not going to be there in like 3 years' time. They're riding this wave. It's such a booming industry, and there's not much margin in solar. So they're not making any money really. They're just trying to get as many installs done as they can by underquoting everyone, but they're not going to be there in about 3-4 years' time if you have a warranty claim or you want to upgrade your system or whatever. So, you know, pay a little bit extra, get a quality installer, and you'll have no issues. And one thing I always say, you know, a lot of people say, what size is good for me? So it depends on your usage, of course. So looking at your bills will definitely help, and knowing what's going to be, you know, best suited to your lifestyle. But I've always recommended to go as big as you can afford. I've never heard in my life, I wish I got a smaller system, but I've heard a lot of people saying, I wish I got a bigger system. You know, you want to oversize your solar system for your electric future. You know, you want to think, if you've got a gas home at the moment and you're getting solar, you know, your hot water is going to be electric, your space conditioning is going to be electric, your car will hopefully be electric, you know, you'll have a battery. All these things are going to come, and it's a lot harder to add panels later, and you can't claim that rebate twice. So, you know, at the start, go as big as you can afford in your budget, and you won't regret it. So, a big one obviously is return on investment. This is what a lot of people ask. They want to know, you know, when will I get my money back? Obviously, very heavily dependent on your usage patterns. But basically, your bill should dictate the size of your budget, right? So let's do some quick napkin maths. I know it's a Sunday, I'm sorry. So say you're spending $400 a quarter. It's just for ease of maths here. So that's $16,000 on 10 years on electricity, right? So in reality, $16,000 should be your budget for solar, if you want to be, you know, real about it, because, you know, that's never going to pay for itself, you know. That $16,000 has just gone on your bills and it's spent, right? Where a solar system will pay for itself. And, you know, after you've paid it off, it's going to be generating free electricity for potentially decades. So yeah, the solar system, it's going to last far longer than 10 years. You know, warranties on some of these inverters are about 10 years, but they're going to last longer. And even if you need to replace the inverter, the panels are going to last, you know, 30, 35 years, 40 years. It's a long investment. They recover themselves very, very quickly, and you'll have free energy for decades, right? So in Melbourne and Ballarat, they'll pay for themselves in around 3 to 7 years on average. Can be more, can be less, depending on your usage patterns. I've seen as fast as, I think, 1.5 years for an 8 kilowatt system. It paid for itself, which is crazy. But yeah, the point is, if you've got an all-electric home and you've got EVs, it's really going to pay for itself very, very, very quickly. So a few tips. Again, buy tier 1 quality products. anyone that's offering not tier 1, walk away, it's not worth your time. You know, the top of the range, it's not that much more money, and they are better, they get better warranties. Simple as just, you know, spend a little bit extra and you won't regret it again. Again, avoid those cowboys, like I was talking about earlier. You know, they're not going to be there, they're going to compromise on quality, they're not really going to care, there's no aftercare service or anything like that. So again, too good to be true, usually is. Again, payback times vary. You want to load shift to make the most of your system. I've got a slide coming up just to show a little bit about this. But the fastest way to pay for your system, like a lot of people say, oh, I can sell energy back to the grid, amazing. The fastest way to pay your system back is to use as much, you know, self-consume as much as you can. That's the fastest way to return your investment. Unless you're on that crazy old school feed-in tariff where it's like 60 cents, then it's different. But that's being scrapped next year anyway. Yeah, so self-consuming is by far the fastest way to recover your investment. So here's just a bit of mode shifting. I'm sure a lot of you already know since you all got solar, but I mean, it's a bit harsh. I don't know who's using that much energy at like 2 a.m., but you get the idea. You want to move those blue, you know, those blue peaks into that middle. Obviously there's a battery, so it's not too important, but the blue peaks need to be moved to the middle. So how do you do that? Timers, really. Setting timers on your dishwasher, setting timers on your washing machine, you know, really making sure you're doing that during peak hours of production. And, you know, if you've got a pool, install it on a timer as well. And, you know, saving electricity intensive processes for the weekend while you're at home, or we're all working from home these days anyway, so just, you know, just do everything during the day. That's how you're going to return your investment the quickest. All right, cool. We're done solar because you guys have solar anyway. So, an electric home. I'm sure you've already seen, you know, this image 1,000 times, but you know, this is what we're aiming for, right? That's what. That's basically what the electric home is. You've got your hot water heat pump. You've got your heat pump unit for heating and cooling. You've got your solar on your roof. You've got your, you know, induction stovetop. You've got your EV. Maybe you've got a home battery. Maybe not, you know, they're pretty expensive. But you've also got the grid there as well. So most of our appliances are already electric. That's like the fridge, your washing machine, blah, 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 blah. But the main ones that need replacing, like I just said, space heating, water heaters, cooktops, and your vehicles. I'll touch on vehicles briefly, but again, I know it's a bit of a sticky one. So let's start with hot water. So heating your hot water, like we saw at the start in that pie chart, that can be 30% of your energy bill, right? That's a big chunk. And so by far the best option for water at the moment is a hot water heat pump. They are incredibly efficient compared to gas heaters. You know, some of these gas heaters, maybe they get to 90% efficiency. These hot water heat pumps, new models can be 700% efficient. So it's pretty shocking when you look at the numbers. And they can really, really help reduce your bills and reduce your emissions. So it's a bit white, but there is a heat pump there, I promise. So what is a hot water heat pump? They absorb warmth from the ambient air, right? And then, you know, they...
See if that makes a difference.
Oh, no. Yeah, so they're a fantastic option for hot water. Like I said, you know, the new Renai model, the V2, goes up to 700% efficiency, which is crazy. And they can help reduce your hot water costs by, you know, up to 80%, depending on what you've already got installed. So here's how they work, just briefly. You know, they absorb that ambient air from just outside. They concentrate that heat energy using a refrigerant in the compressor here. The heat's then transferred through that refrigerant that's got a really, really, really low boiling point. And then it goes up and heats the water, fills the storage tank, and once that's all brought to temperature, it turns off and it's done. So, you know, the most efficient models, like the Reclaim here, it can be turned on, if you've all got your solar system, you can turn it on 10 a.m., 11 a.m. when the sun's shining. It'll turn on for, you know, in summer, maybe 35, 45 minutes, and then you've got hot water for like 24 hours. So it's unbelievably efficient how these things work, and they really, really partner well with that solar. So yeah, just comparison here, the running costs can save you up to $400 a year just from changing to a heat pump. So, you know, the return on investment on these things are pretty quick. And then, yeah, just comparing the electric, which a lot of people say, oh, I'll just get the electric one because they're cheap and they run on electricity. They're still using an element to heat that water instead of, you know, using the refrigerator. The cheapest to buy, but the most expensive to run, those electric ones. Obviously gas, it's burning fossil fuels and it's going to be horrendously expensive. Solar's a great option, but again, it's a bit intermittent, high maintenance, and if you've got a gas boosted one, it's still burning fossil fuels and you're not truly off gas anyway. And electric boosting, again, is inefficient. So by far the best option is a heat pump. It's the cheapest to run. You can basically have zero emissions if you partner it with the solar PV, so it's a no-brainer for your hot water there. And essentially they become thermal batteries. Like I touched on earlier, they hold this hot water for, you know, up to 48 hours, some of these tanks. So, you know, you can use that solar, heat it all up, heat your hot water up, and then you've got hot water for over a day, right? But you're going to just heat it up again tomorrow anyway, and the sun comes up. So it's just it's a great system to get installed. So here's some tips for installing hot water heat pumps. Again, it's going to be a running theme here to select good brands. It's, you know, they have higher upfront costs, but what I want to try and get across to you guys is you've got to think about the lifetime value of these products. Like, it's about how much they save over the course of its lifetime. So the more you spend up front, the more you're going to save, and the faster these things will pay for themselves. So you want to select good brands. Reclaim and Sandon, by far the best two on the market, but by far the most expensive. But they are, you know, tip-top. Their efficiency is unbelievable, and as well as their customer service and everything that goes with that. But also, you know, you've got the mid ones, so you've got the Hydrothermia, Apricus, Enviroflow. Other brands are available, of course. But those cheap ones that get advertised to install a hot water heat pump for free, I always recommend to avoid those. It's like similar to that solar stuff I was talking about at the start. They're just riding this renewable energy wave, and they're probably going to break down, and they're not going to be there to serve that warranty claim in 5 years, whatever it might be. So again, spend a little bit more, and you won't regret it. And a big part of these systems is sizing them correctly. So a lot of people, you know, they say, oh, well, I'll just run out of hot water when I get hot water heat pump. I've got to keep my gas instant because I never know how many people are going to be around. You can just buy the tank that's good for your size, right? So I tend to recommend 70 litres per person in the household, or 70 litres per room in your household if you commonly have guests. And that's by far enough. You know, you're highly unlikely to ever run out. And a lot of these systems have the instant top-up as well, if needed. And then, you know, the final two tips, like I was touching on, you know, operating them at the most efficient times. So if you don't have solar, you can operate it during the off-peak tariff, like turn it on at 3 in the morning or whatever, when it's cheap, heat up all your hot water for the day, and then you're done. Or, perfect, if you've got solar, you can essentially get free hot water. Like I said, turn it on at 10, 11 in the morning, when the sun's shining, and it will heat up all your hot water for the day. So expected prices. Again, there's a lot of brands and a lot of different prices, so you can expect to pay anywhere between, you know, $1,500 and $5,500, depending on what brand you go for, what rebates you're eligible for, and what size tank you go for as well. So cheaper brands like Eco Alliance, again, I don't really recommend that one, but you can expect to pay around $1,500. And then the premium brands like Reclaim, around $5,500. Again, this is going to be a running theme. You'll probably get sick of it by the end, but the more you're spending up front, the more you're going to save in the long run, and the less emissions as well, right? So that's all because better brands, they have better efficiency. And the most important thing about electrification is the efficiency. Like, I've got a lot of graphs to show later to compare this, but yeah, the more efficient it is, the less energy it uses, the less emissions it produces, and, you know, the cheaper it is to run. So moving on to space conditioning, this is the big chunk, right? 40% here in Victoria. So a new poll, who's got ducted gas heating here? Yeah, okay, probably about half, okay. Yeah, so that's by far, you know, the most common option here in Victoria, and it's horrendously inefficient and horrendously bad for the environment as well. So, reverse cycle split systems, they are by far the best option at the moment. The most cost effective, the most efficient, and the most environmentally friendly option to heat and cool your home. And they can do both, right? You don't need a heater and a cooler. You've got one unit that does everything. And they can do individual rooms, so you can zone off your home. You don't have to turn on your ducts and then the whole system's going crazy just to heat your living room while you're watching Netflix or whatever. They really are a fantastic option. So what is it? Very similar. You can see the compressor looks very similar to the heat pump there. Again, they're unbelievably efficient, up to 600% efficient, and they can reduce your heating and cooling costs by, a lot. Up to 90%, depending on what you're using. If you're using just a wood fire and buying firewood every day, they're going to save you a lot of money. So here's just a quick comparison compared to the other types of heating and cooling. Obviously, fan and electric blankets, they're a bit of an outlier, but to the main ones, they're by far the cheapest option here. And there you see that ducted heating in the bottom right. But that's probably even more now, $120 an hour, with the gas prices going up again. And again, they have the least emissions as well because of that efficiency. So here's some tips for installing reverse cycles. Multiple options are available. So, again, you hear a lot of people say, oh, it's not right for me, it doesn't suit my needs, it doesn't suit my home. These technologies have come a long way in a short amount of time, and there's a lot of options for a lot of different needs. So you can get single splits, where every indoor unit has an outdoor compressor unit. And so this is the most efficient way, and it's the most affordable way as well, because installers that'll be the cheapest way to install for them. But granted, not everyone has loads of room for heaps and heaps of outdoor units, right? So that's when you can look into multi-split systems. Again, the contrast is a bit funny, but on the right there, that's one compressor connected to multiple indoor units. And that's a great option for those that are a bit space constrained. But will cost a bit more to install, right? And then your ducted split systems. Obviously, a lot of people try to reuse those ducts or get those ducts upgraded and put a reverse cycle system in there. Still much better than ducted gas, of course, but it is very, very expensive to do, and it is less efficient than these other two options because as soon as you're pumping air through ducts, you're losing heat or cool air as well through those ducts. So obviously, some people want to go with it because they like the aesthetic and they like the way it feels or whatever it may be. But by far, the most efficient is to install single or multi-split systems. So you have to consider the indoor and the outdoor unit. Usually an installer will say, I'll do it back to back, which is just the outdoor compressor unit is there and the indoor compressor unit is there. Pretty self-explanatory. And that's going to be the most efficient because you've got a shorter pipe run, the air's going a less distance, so it's a more efficient way to move the air as well. Look for at least, that's a bit high, but at least a 5-star entry rating. Again, the more stars, the more you're going to save, that recurring theme, right? The more you spend on it, the higher the efficiency, the less it's going to cost to run. And again, sizing is huge for the reverse cycles. So if you want to aim for around 1 kilowatt per 10 square meters, unless you've got high ceilings, then I'd recommend you talk with your installer, but it's about a 30% increase if you've got quite high ceilings, right? But the issue with the sizes of the reverse cycle, if you oversize them, they'll short cycle, which is where they turn on and off and on and off and on and off constantly, which is really, really bad for the health of the system and the efficiency. And if you go too small, it's just going to be running full throttle the whole time because it won't be able to meet the capacity of the room. And again, that's really, really detrimental to the health of the system. And you want to optimize your usage as well once you've got these things installed. You don't want to, if it's 35 degrees outside or whatever it is, you don't want to, ramp this thing to 18 degrees inside because it's going to be, going crazy to try and, match that. Again, it won't run efficiently and it will affect the lifespan of the system. So set it to a more comfortable temperature, 25, 27, so you get that stark difference between the indoor and the outdoor, and it will run way more efficiently because you're not trying to bring it down from 35 all the way down to 18. Vice versa in winter, if it's 4 degrees outside, don't set the thing to 28 degrees inside, because it's going to be doing that same thing. Set it to 18, 21, nice solid room temperature, and it'll bring the room to temperature much, much quicker. Again, how do I know what size is good for me? Like I said, 1 kilowatt per 10 square meters, unless you've got high ceilings, then it's a bit of a different one, and you can install fans to push that air back around as well, if needed. But if you've got a 20 square meter room, 2 to 2.5 kilowatt system will suffice. If you've got a 20 to 40 square meter room, 2.5 to 5 kilowatt, you get the pattern, 40 to 60 square meter, 4 to 6 kilowatt there. And these, you can get systems, 10, 11, 12, 13 kilowatts. So if you've got really, really big open plan living, there's options for you as well. What are the expected prices? So this is a bit of like how long is a piece of string, because there's so many different units available, and they can range anywhere from 650 to 5, 6 grand, and that's depending on the size. Massive price disparity between like a 2 kilowatt and a 10 kilowatt, for example. And the brand as well. So, there's cheap brands and there's expensive brands, like with everything in life, right? But again, if you cheap out, it's going to cost more to run, and it will not be as efficient as those better brands. So the more you spend, again, the more you're going to save. So installation, there's a lot of confusion when it comes to the installation of these units, and a lot of people get a bit unhappy, and they think they're getting hit with these hidden costs. So just to let you know what to expect, the installation of these units aren't cheap. They use quite a lot of material and refrigerant piping, which is quite expensive, and obviously it's including all the parts and the labour. So for a smaller size system, it can be anywhere between $700 and $1,000 to install these things, plus the cost of the unit, right? And then the larger systems, they cost a little bit more to install because they're using more pieces and they're a bit more technical. So that's $850 to $1,200 roughly. And important to think about, you've got to think about the existing electrical work in your home. You might need a switchboard upgrade to take more power, or to install a new circuit breaker. If you've got cabling issues, or if you want the compressor at one side of the house and the indoor unit at the other side of the house, that's going to really increase the price as well, because they have to run 15 meters of cable, or whatever it may be. So for a 3.5 kilowatt, pretty standard system, you can expect anywhere between two grand and 2.5 grand supply and install. And then you may be eligible for rebates to bring this total down a bit as well. Again, pretty recurring theme as well. A lot of suppliers underquote to try and win that deal. And once they're at your house, they're like, actually, they're going to keep racking up these things to put additional fees into your quote. So beware of too good to be true again, as it usually is. And they'll try and get you when they're at the property, and it's too late to say no. Okay, so the hardest one to convince people of, induction cooking. So induction cooking, it's come a long way. We're not talking about youth hostels from 20 years ago where it took like 20 minutes to cook a tin of beans. These things are very, very efficient. They're very, very safe, and they're very, very fast. That's because they're using electromagnetic fields to heat the pan directly. Essentially, the pan becomes the element, right? So there's no wasted energy. If you think about a gas cooker, all that energy goes up the side, right, and into the air, and you're feeling it, breathing it in as well. But these induction cookers, they put the heat directly into the pan, and so it means you can raise and lower that temperature pretty much instantly as well. So they're 85% efficient, can be more efficient than that actually, where a gas cooker is around 20 and 30% efficient. So yeah, pretty stark difference there. And like I said, you're breathing all that in if you're cooking with the gas. And a recent study from the Climate Council showed that 12% of child asthma rates is linked to cooking with gas in the home. So they compared it to living with a smoker for these children, which is pretty shocking to think about. And that's because it leaks gas even when it's not in use. You know, a lot of these older gas cookers are constantly leaking gas into your home, and you're breathing all that in. So it's better for your wallet, the induction, it's better for the environment, and it's better for your health. I know it's hard to try and get rid of that gas cooker. A lot of people love cooking with their gas. That common, oh, I've got woks, I can't go induction. You know, that's a common argument, right? But you know, there is no argument. The induction is far better, and it's going to be better for you as well. So there's just a few comparisons. The efficiency, you know, it's boiling water is twice as fast. So if you're on the fence about these induction cooktops, right? What I've done, I went to IKEA. They sell them for like 60, the little portable ones. You buy one of those and just plug that in next to your gas cooker. And when you're doing pasta or anything, boil your water with the induction, and you'll see how much quicker it is. And it will really, really help if you're not ready to go for a full induction stove. At least you're then, you know, using that.
You can't use the alloy pots, is it? Because I tried to put a coffee machine on a fridge that will heat up.
Yeah. It has to be a magnetic pot, so cast iron, stainless steel. If you're in doubt if it will work, grab a fridge magnet, chuck the fridge magnet on the pot, and then if it sticks, you're good to go. Work with induction, yeah. And they're super easy to clean as well. You know, I swear I'm always rubbing my gas cooker because there's baking grease on the side, and you know, it takes me about an hour and a half. You know, a couple of sprays of the surface thing, wipe it down, and you're done. Again, immediate response. There's safer. There's, you know, you can touch the thing because your hand's not magnetic, so it's not going to transfer to your hand. But the surface stays cool. So if you've got kids running around that like to put their hands over things, or like me, I've got housemates that like to put their hands over things. You know, there's no danger of you know burning themselves on these cookers. So here's a few tips for installing induction. You know, consider your kitchen size and your layout. You know what's going to suit you. You know, how many burners do you need? Is your current system overkill? Do you have like 6 burners and you only ever use 2? So maybe you want to downsize? Or maybe like, oh, I wish I had another burner. These are the things you want to consider when you're looking to upgrade these systems, right? Yeah, again. You want to consider your kitchen aesthetic. What's going to suit your kitchen tops? What's going to suit your cabinets? You know, what functions do you want in this cooktop? And like we just spoke about, test your pots and pans. It's got to be magnetic, so cast iron, stainless steel. When in doubt, chuck a fridge magnet on. If it sticks, you're good to go. And don't forget to cap that gas line once you replace that gas cooker as well. You don't want that methane leaking into your home again. And usually the cooktop's the last one to go for a lot of people. So you want to close your gas account. I'll touch on that later and avoid that $350 service fee. So prices, I mean, it's the same as gas cookers. You can get one for 600 or you can get one for 10 grand. There's so many options out there to suit whatever desire you want to do in your kitchen. Very dependent on the brand and the size. And installation can vary quite a lot. For a simple, in-out job, maybe $600 to install the unit. Maybe if you've got a decent electrician, he'll do it a bit cheaper for you. But there are things that can make induction a bit more expensive to install, and that's the existing electrical work. Maybe you need a new power point installed in your kitchen, and induction, they pull quite a lot of power. Sometimes they'll need an upgrade to the main system as well, which can really ramp the costs up a bit. Yeah, like I just said, either the mains or a switchboard upgrade to make sure you've got enough capacity for the induction stove. Okay, so I'll touch on new builds really quickly as well. But remember, I'm not a builder by trade, so take everything with a little bit of a grain of salt. But all the same points apply. You've just got a head start because there's no replacing involved. You get to put in what you want from the get-go, right? And you can really prioritize your efficiency as well. So that's that insulation, that's that double glazing, that's that air tightness, so there's no drafts or leaks as well. Gas is being phased out. We've got this get off gas plan. The Victorian government are pushing it pretty hard. So by 2035, 2040, you won't be able to really use gas. It's going to be phased out. All these gas power plants, they're pushing their closing date further and further forward. So you want to, avoid that expensive and inevitable retrofit work that you'll have to do later. If you're building a new home now, you'd have to make it electric anyway. So you may as well build it as an all-electric home. And look, fortunately, in the city of Ballarat, you don't require permission or a permit to have a gas-free home, which is fantastic. Because a lot of places you do. A lot of places you've got to pay fees if you want to, not have a gas connection to that home, which is pretty crazy. So a few tips, if you're building a new home, is, build it to a minimum thermal performance of 7 stars. It's going to be mandatory next year anyway, so best to get ahead of the curve if you're building one in the next year. And look, this is going to save you money as well. You're going to return on investment pretty quick on that because, it will cost way less to heat and cool your property if it's really airtight and energy efficient. Install those appliances we've already spoken about. And install solar PV during the construction because you can get the rebate for homes under construction. For a while, it was only to existing homes, but they changed it a few years ago. For homes under construction, you can now claim that PV solar rebate as well, and the no-interest loan. I'll touch a bit more on that later. There's also the 7-Star Homes program. It's actually fully registered, I think, at the moment, but they're going to be launching another iteration of this. I think next year now. They've pushed the release back to next year instead of October. But this can help builders, build these energy-efficient homes. And obviously a big one, 3-phase power. This is a big debate in this kind of world, right? So most residential properties will operate perfectly well on single-phase power. That's an all-electric home with an EV. It's going to be fine with single-phase. Unless you're welding, unless you've got like 4 EVs and like 8 batteries or whatever, you're going to be all right. That being said, 3-phase is very good for future-proofing, and it's very, very costly to do later if you're building from scratch, right? So if you can get a good deal with your electrician to put 3-phase in the construction phase, it might be worth going for because there are other benefits to 3-phase. You can export like 15 kilowatt of your solar system instead of 5, which is the normal cut-off because you've got 3 phases, right? But again, I'm not a builder or an engineer, so please always consult professionals and do a bit of your research while you look into these things. But like I said, most residential properties are perfectly fine with single-phase power, and that's when they're all electric as well. Okay, I'll touch on vehicles because we're here and we're talking about it. But again, I know it's a pretty tough one because they are still pretty expensive, right? But this is if your car's about to pack it in, you're looking at a new car, I really, really, really recommend that you go for an EV. That's because they're 3.5 times more efficient than combustion engine cars, which is pretty shocking. So just to put that into some numbers, a standard petrol car, that's losing about 80% of its energy as heat and a little bit of noise. Sometimes a lot of noise for some people, right? That's incredibly inefficient. So every dollar you're putting in for petrol, 80 cents is going out as heat and noise. Who can afford that with petrol prices like they are at the moment, right? It's pretty shocking when you think of it in cents and dollars. So why get an EV? 95% efficient motor. It's simple as, it's just, night and day. They're much cheaper to drive, they're much cheaper to maintain, they're cheaper to fuel up and charge, right? And if you've got solar, like most of you already do, you can charge it using your solar system, and it's really, truly clean transportation at that point. You've also got to think about the future of the connections. What are EVs if they're not just large batteries on wheels? That's all they are. And coming in 2025, most likely, you'll be able to plug that into your home, and it will be, vehicle to grid and vehicle to home technology. And you can use your car, your idle car can be your home backup battery at that point, because it will be a 100 kilowatt hour battery instead of a 5 or a 10 like a home battery. So the main point that I've been talking about today, these appliances, they're going to save you money, they're going to reduce your emissions, and that's just because they're so much more efficient. And it always comes back down to that efficiency. Electric machines, they waste less energy. I won't go into thermodynamics and all that because it can get pretty boring, but I've got some graphs to put it into visual perspective for you. How much energy they use less compared to how much that's going to cost you. So I'll go through these pretty quickly. Again, these are all from Rewiring Australia, so you can check them out online, and you'll see, you can look at all the studies and everything. They've made it super accessible for everyone to read and see. But I'll go through each appliance we've spoken about. So this one's the water heaters, and each one will be the average yearly energy use. And then the next slide will be the lifetime running costs of that appliance. And you'll get it pretty quick, so I'll move through them quite quickly. But it's just to give you a visual representation of the efficiency of these systems when you look at how much it's going to cost you. So if we look at the energy usage here, this is annual energy usage. You've got your gas and your electric resistance water heaters. And you can see, a heat pump's using a quarter of that energy, right? So when you put that into lifetime running costs, again, it's like night and day. If you've got your solar system like most of you do, that electric heat pump's $400 instead of $3,600 over the course of its lifetime. And that lifetime's 10 years, by the way, the warranty that they use for these studies. Again, you'll get this pretty quickly. Average yearly energy usage, this is the space heaters. Same thing, right? Quarter of the energy for the heat pump down there, bottom right, compared to the wood fire, the gas, and the electric resistance. Same thing for the running costs, right? And interestingly, this one's the heat pump using the grid is still, even if you don't have solar, it's a comparison between the two. And when you use solar, it drops it even more. So obviously the electric resistance is using quite similar to the induction, but again, it's far less efficient and still releases more emissions than that induction at the end of the day. But compared to that gas stove, again, it's using less than half, of the average energy usage there. And then the stovetop running costs. It's you're picking up on the trend here, I guess. Again, if you want to look into the studies behind all these and look more into the numbers, check out the Rewiring Australia website as well. And here's a good one, I like this one a lot. So here's the vehicles. So the top four purple bars, four of the major models here in Australia, right? Ford Ranger, Mazda, RAV4, and the Corolla, compared to 5 of the popular EVs. And so the crazy thing, the Rivian Ute, for those that don't know, that's basically Ford Ranger, very similar, big 4x4 pickup truck. It's using, less than half the energy of a Corolla, which is madness. And then when you get down to the smaller models, the Model Y and the Model 3, it's they're using such little energy compared to those internal combustion engines at the top there. And so here's the lifetime running cost of 10 years, right? For driving. And I haven't seen petrol that cheap in a long time, $150. It's about $180, $190 at the moment, so that would be even more, right? But look at that, electric car charged with solar. Lifetime running cost of 10 years, $820. Who could say that? And who could say no to that? That's crazy. All right. So here's a conventional home. So this is that fossil fuel home that we touched on, spending $5,200 a year on energy. And look, if you look bottom left, that's a huge one, right? The generation waste. That's because burning fossil fuels releases a lot of heat and a lot of noise. And you're getting a lot of waste when you're burning gas in your home. Compared to the electrified home, and that's the savings you're going to see. It's going to be using 64 kilowatt hours less, every year, which is crazy. This is, again, all because of that efficiency we've been touching on throughout the presentation, right? And so, look, I'm no stranger to know that the upfront costs of these systems is quite a lot, and a lot of people, have that as a barrier, the financial outlay of these systems. That's because the technology is quite new and it's quite expensive itself. Again, I want you to think about the lifetime value of the systems, though, not just straight what's on the price tag. These appliances will save you money in the long run. They will pay for themselves in the long run, like your solar system, will and has and is doing. And they'll also reduce your emissions as well, which is, the real winner, right? Important to think about, again, that switchboard. It might need upgrading if you've got an old, full switchboard. but that's 100% inevitable, and you're going to have to do it anyway at some point if you're going to want to install more electric appliances. So it's 100% necessary for your electric future. Also, there's heaps of federal and state governments available for you guys to claim. I'll go through a lot of them now. And that's because they recognise these systems are good for the environment and they're good for people's wallets, so they want people to install these things. So what rebates are available? Just quickly. So this is a federal level rebate, STCs, small scale technology certificates. You don't need to worry too much about this one. This is just applied as a point of sale discount on your invoices by your supplier. But it's basically an incentive from the federal government to install renewable energy technologies, and they're calculated from how much renewable energy you generate or offset from now until 2030. So the earlier you install these systems, the more money you're going to get for that STC rebate, basically. But again, that's just a point of sale discount. You don't need to do too much for that one. Victorian Energy Certificates, also known as VEECs, again, another point of sale discount. But this is to incentivize the decommissioning of an existing inefficient system with replacing it with an efficient system. And so as of May this year, they've introduced new activities to incentivize the decommissioning of gas systems, so gas hot water and gas space heating, to replace it with heat pumps. And look, they officially released it on May 31st, this new activity, but they're yet to approve any products. I don't know, we probably expected a bit too much of the government there, but it is coming. Hopefully this month they will release a list of approved products that you can install and decommission with. And it will be, for the hot water, if you decommission a gas hot water system and you put in a heat pump, you're looking at maybe $500, between $400 to $600 maybe extra incentive to do that. And for the space heating, it depends what you're removing, because there's so many different options. But a whole gas ducted system, for example, if you decommission that and put in 4 split systems around your home instead, you can get probably nearly $2,000 back from the government to do that as well. So if your gas ducted system has already kicked it, or is 25, 30 years old, I'd highly recommend that you just hold off. If you wait for this rebate to come live, and you'll save quite a bit more money. A huge one, the Solar Victoria hot water rebate. You can get $1,000 off the hot water heat pump system, and there are a few eligibility criteria, like the current system has to be 3 years or older. So if you just bought a gas hot water system, firstly, I'm sorry. Secondly, you have to wait to replace that one. So maybe do something else while you wait for that to clock over 3 years, and then you can get that rebate on there. And there's other eligibility, like the combined household income, same as the solar PV rebate. And also for those that have claimed that PV rebate, you can still claim this hot water rebate. They're not, they used to be conjoined, where you could only claim one of the two, but they split that up, and so you can get both now. So here is that solar PV rebate. You can get $1,400 straight rebate off the system, and you can also take a $1,400 no interest loan as well, and that's paid back over a period of about four years. So it equates to about $20 a month or something like that, which is actually less than what you save from installing the system. So it's a no-brainer. And also, I'm sure you all read the headlines. We finally got an electrification federal budget announcement, which is fantastic. So they've put $1 billion into real cheap, low-interest loans for people to take these energy efficiency, everything we've discussed today. They'll give you very, very low-interest loans to perform these in your home. And that's going to be controlled by the Clean Energy Finance Corporation. And obviously it was only announced a couple months ago, so they're still working through the design of this scheme, but we're likely to see it later this year, and that will be hopefully available to almost everyone. Okay, so we'll just touch on planning the transition now. Obviously we've touched on everything that you can do and should do. So how about we talk about planning? And why should we plan? Obviously, it's to be ready, first and foremost. Like I said, if you've got like a really old gas hot water system, and then it packs itself in, you might just be, oh, I need to get hot water ASAP. So you might put another gas system in if you're not ready, you're not thinking about it, and then you're stuck for another 20, 25 years, right? So having something down on paper, it will mean you're ready to go, you're ready to pull the trigger when these things pack in, or when you want to pull the trigger, you've got the budget for it. And it will also kind of hold you accountable. If you've got something written down and you can keep looking at it and you can see your progress, it will really, inspire you to keep going. So firstly, identify your appliances that are on gas. That's a pretty easy one, and which uses the most. You also want to consider the age and the condition of each of these, right? So when you write it down on the paper, write down when you bought the thing, when you installed it, what condition it's in, all that kind of stuff. So here's an example, super simple. Number one, highest gas use, that gas heater in the main living room. Number two, the next highest use, the gas heater in the family room. Then your hot water system, then your cooktop, right? So this isn't a complicated, crazy list of, mind maps, all things going crazy. It's just, list of the things in order of their usage and their age. Once you've done that, you want to select your alternative appliances. So you can draw a line across and say, I want to replace this one with this one. And again, when you're doing your research and you're looking at what to replace it with, think about that lifetime value again. The high quality, more efficient product is going to have greater lifetime value. It's going to save you more money. It's going to work better in the home, and it's just going to be better overall. So basic questions to get you started when you're looking at alternative appliances. How big are the rooms you need to heat? Get the square meter of your home, of each room, so you know what size you need in each room. How many people use hot water at peak times? If you have guests over quite regularly, maybe go a bit bigger. And why you need to write these questions down? If you have this already and you walk to an installer and you say, look, I've got a 20 square meter room here, I've got a 4 side, I need a 2.5 kilowatt, I need a 4. They know what you're talking about, and they're not going to try and upsell you and do all this crazy stuff that a lot of installers get caught doing at the moment. If you're informed and you know what you're looking for, then they won't be able to take advantage of you, and you can get the most efficient system for your home. Again, how many pots do you normally cook with? How much space do you have for those outdoor and those indoor components? Do you need a multi-split or a single-split system? What's your budget? Obviously, that's a huge one. How much can you afford for these systems? What rebates are you eligible for? So again, do your own research, talk with your installer. They'll be able to walk you through what they can claim on your behalf as well. And what other criteria are important for your family? What kind of aesthetic are you looking for? What kind of lifestyle? All that kind of stuff is very important as well. So after you've selected those alternatives, the last thing to do is to set yourself a timeline. And this is the big one, because a lot of people I talk to, they set themselves these timelines and they say, oh, okay, I want to do whatever it takes you, 5 days, 5 months, 5 years, whatever it takes. As long as you've got something written down, you can see your progress, you can hold yourself accountable, and you can actually, see you're actually going quicker because you're saving so much more money, and you can use that money you've saved from the first switch to fund the next one. Again, your timeline's going to be determined by your budget. Like I just said, the savings from that first appliance, they can just go directly into the budget for the replacement of the second appliance. And really, really important to think about as well. When you finally ditch that last gas appliance, you can cap your account and close your account, and then you've removed that $350 a year of service charge that you're getting charged, even if you're not using the stuff. So really, really make sure to remember to do that. So here's an example. Oh, and sorry, just importantly, on that third bullet point, they've just passed legislation recently that they can't charge any more than $200 to cap your account, because people are getting caught charging $1,000.
That was the biggest load of shit
It should have been illegal. It should have been
that ever
illegal.
existed. And I'm sorry, but I think there's a few questions that should come up about the economics of all this. That was a really good one.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but yeah, people were caught charging, $1,500 to close your cafe gas account, which is, obscene. You should be paid to close your gas account. to be honest. Anyway, here's a simple plan for the 5 years. First year, replace your gas heating, which is using the most gas every year. Fantastic. Year 3, use those savings to help fund the gas water heater, which is the second most consumption in your home. And then 5th year, you finally got all that. You've got your compounding savings from the first and the third year replacements, and you can use that to replace it at the top, and then close your gas account, and then you're done. Obviously, that's super simplified, and everyone's different, and everyone's going to have different budgets and different timelines and everything. So, it's really dependent on what your usage is and what your initial budget is as well. And if you're not ready, if you don't have budget, there are things you can do. Like if you've just got a load of gas appliances installed, again, I'm sorry, but there are things you can do to prepare yourself when you're ready to put these appliances in. So install power where you want your hot water heat pumps to go. Put a power point there. You can get that done pretty cheap from an electrician, and it will really smooth the process for when you're ready. That switchboard, have a look at it. Electrification is going to require more circuits, more space, more power. So make sure you've got the capacity in your home already. A lot of people have those old ceramic fuses still, which is pretty crazy. So have a look at replacing that, because it will have to be replaced if it's super old and full. And make sure your pots and pans are induction friendly. So if you want to go for an all-electric home eventually, don't go and buy a non-magnetic pot, from IKEA or whatever. Make sure you're buying one that's good for induction, and then you're good to go when you finally make that swap. And also, the big one is to do some independent research. If you have the time to just spend a bit of time online and have a look around what's available and what the more informed you are, the easier these decisions are going to be for you. And also, if you're not just worried about the economic benefits and you are worried about the environmental benefits, you can switch to 100% green power as well. It's going to cost a bit more, but it's going to be meaning that your power is coming from renewable sources. Okay, we're right near the end now, so just to bring it home and show you guys again what we're aiming for. I'm sure you've all seen this image 1,000 times, but it's a great one. So there's the all-electric home. And so what I want to make really, really, really clear, the main points that I want to get across in today's talk, is for hot water and space heating, heat pumps are using 1/4 of the energy, right? That's where these savings are coming from, that efficiency, right? And it's using 1/4 of the energy. They do the same job with fossil fuels. Induction heating is half the amount of energy to do the same job with fossil fuels. And the EVs use 1/3 as much energy as gasoline power plants, right? So they're doing the same job. You can live the same lifestyle. You don't need to change anything in your lifestyle, but they're just using so much less energy and they're producing less emissions and they're saving you money. So lower energy usage, lower bills, lower emissions. It's a huge win for you and the environment, right? And then just to end on a quote from Saul Griffith from Rewiring Australia there. So obviously half the energy for the same comfort and the majority of emissions gone overnight, all at lower weekly costs. Of course, there are numerous other benefits like safer indoor air quality, not needing to visit a petrol station, and a battery gets through blackouts and more. Yeah, I just thought it was a nice quote to sum everything up at the end there. Oh, it's a bit, so further reading, it's a bit faded, but here are some great resources as well to go and have a look at. I really recommend all of these pages here. Obviously the Climate Council, they've got heaps of bill-saving resources online. Make the Switch is an excellent organisation online that helps make the switch, I guess. They help you make that plan, right? Joyce is excellent for comparing the appliances and looking at what the most efficient and the most bang for your buck is. Fantastic for when you're looking at replacing, so have a look at Joyce. Solar Victoria, they've got heaps of resources online, as well as Sustainability Victoria, both fantastic. And also, if you're not, and you're on Facebook, join the My Efficient Electric Home Facebook page, because it's full of like-minded individuals, all having a discussion online. There are some people that maybe know a bit more, and some people that don't know much but think they know a lot, so be careful. But it is a great resource, right? And there's a lot of really great discussion about it. And also you can visit the Yarra Energy Foundation website, or give me a call and I'll have a chat with you on the phone. I also really highly recommend this book for those that haven't read it. It's excellent, and it really paints a picture and shows what's available. Okay, so that's me. Sorry for talking for so long. But yeah, we can do some questions, I guess, and see what's up. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Lloyd. I think we only have one microphone, so you may have to yell out your questions. Yes.
I've already invested in 2 5 kilowatt reverse cycle heaters. Now, what I don't know is the most efficient way to run them. You've given us the temperature to run at. Should I leave it on constantly or
Well,
turn it off periodically?
once you set it on the temperature, but it depends on how well insulated your home is, right? Because it will just work to keep the room at that temperature. So it should just be able to cycle itself on and off. I don't know which one you got installed, but the idea is that you set a temperature you want the room to be, and that machine just works to keep the room at that temperature constantly.
So you guys like leaving it on overnight?
Yeah, keep it on auto. Yeah. Oh, not on overnight. No. Only when you're going to be using the room, right? And only switch it on if you're in the room. You don't need a room that you're not in to be hot or cool. Close that door off. Zone your house, and make sure you're only, using it where you're being in, right? And get it on auto, so it does everything by itself. But that's the most efficient way. And don't ramp the temperature difference as well, like I touched on. If it's really hot outside, don't make it really cold inside. Just make it comfortable enough. Yeah.
Did everyone hear that? Yeah, great.
Geothermal heat pumps, where do we find out about that?
So
Somewhere in Ballarat?
in the ground.
Yes.
Yeah, they're big in Europe. Those ground heat pumps, and that's because they're not that big in Australia, and it's mainly because of the environment we live in. So in Europe it gets bloody cold, right? So that ambient temperature can be a bit of an issue if it's minus 15, minus 20 outside. Yeah, maybe, yeah. But that's why they go into the ground, to get that temperature. But here in Australia, you rarely get those temperatures, and most of these air source heat pumps are efficient enough to go to like minus 10 these days anyway, which I doubt it drops below minus 10 very often here. So that's why you don't see many ground source heat pumps in Australia, just because they're not really required and they do cost more to buy and install. But yeah, I would always recommend an air source heat pump for most Australians. Yeah.
That was a fantastic presentation.
Thanks.
That was a really comprehensive issue. You raised a number of questions which I think are critical to this whole picture. You mentioned it 2 or 3 times. It was the fact that in the industry at the moment, the biggest players are the sharks and the cowboys. That's it. Start, middle and end.
Yep.
It means that when you put a figure, it'll cost between $500 and $5,000, most people are going to say, why do I want to spend $5 grand when this guy is telling me I can get this unit for $1 grand or free?
Yeah.
So I've gone through this process. I've gone and bought a heat pump at the top end.
For retain?
I hope it's the right decision. I believe it is. But the questions I'd raised, which I think are relevant to the whole picture, is 1, at what stage do people recognise who the sharks and the cowboys are, state it clearly, and push them out? 1. But 2, I find it hard to understand from an engineering point of view why it costs 2 or 3 times more to make a decent water tank that lasts for 15 years versus a pretty ordinary one, and why a heat pump can't be made to last for 15 years. I say that because in all these figures, unfortunately, the question of what happens when that heat pump or that water tank die is forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not much economic point in replacing the heat pump or the water tank if in 5 or 7 years or 10 years they fall over. And from a whole point of view, ensuring that these units are engineered with a 15-year life, and it doesn't have to cost more than, I would argue, 50% more of the base cost. And if we're talking about re-electrifying Australia with X million households, I ask the question why Yarra and others rewiring Australia and the governments don't recognise that throwing millions of dollars of subsidies for cheap, nasty solutions is throwing money down the toilet. So this is important, this is critical.
Yep.
But I say with a strong passion on this, that making it work well the first time, and not just expensively well, but environmentally and properly well, should be something that we're all aware of, and particularly the players like yourself who know this.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with everything you said. And yeah, just for context, we're an independent not-for-profit. We've got no vested interest in selling. My whole idea is to help people like you guys, reduce those costs. But yeah, everything you said is completely valid, which is why I kept banging on about that. Opt for those more premium brands. If you've got a Reclaim, that's a 15-year warranty on the stuff itself as well. So again, just like you said, you want to avoid those real cheap, nasty ones going in, because they are going to break down in 5 years' time, and then we're going to have a refrigerant crisis on our hands, right? But if you install those high-quality ones, right, you've got the 15-year, 20-year lifespan, and by that time, the refrigerant and the recycling processes for these things will hopefully, right, will be second to none, and we'll be ready to rewire. Or replace whatever's needed, if it's the compressor or the tank. But yeah, everything you've raised is completely valid. So that's why I always recommend a bit more independent research or whatever it is.
Independent research is great, but the reality is it's confusing.
Yeah, very.
There's so much BS around.
Yep.
And I still go back to what I was trying to say. If we are going to get 1 million people doing this, ensuring that the product quality is absolutely there, or not totally, but as far as possible to me, should be front and centre.
Oh, that's 100% true as well, and that's why it's so powerful to set up. Sorry, guys, to just set up services like we offer to council as well. We offer bulk buy servicing where we go and we vet every single product and we select which products we want to be offered to people. If it was hypothetically, let's say we set up one in Ballarat. I would go in, I would vet all the things, look at warranty, look at sourcing, look at everything, and you select what appliances can be offered to the Ballarat people. We also vet the suppliers themselves to make sure the sharks aren't coming in, like you mentioned, and doing crazy stuff. So everything gets independently vetted by a body like the Yarra Energy Foundation, or there's other organisations that do similar stuff. And that's setting up a whole system to make sure people are getting the highest quality product at bulk by reduced costs with really highly quality vetted suppliers as well. And so that's an excellent way to avoid these kinds of things you're talking about. Not letting people go at it alone, making sure they can call someone up, talk to them, walk them through the quotes. Is this a fair price? Is this the right size? Getting all that independent advice as well is super powerful. Which is why those bulk buy service offerings are really, really picking up across councils in Victoria now. So that's one way you can avoid a lot of those problems you raised. Yeah.
Why is the council still letting gas go into new subdivisions?
I need a question.
Why is the council letting gas lines go into new subdivisions? Because they're trying to cut emissions. They're letting gas. It's going right in front of my face.
Yeah, gas lobbying.
So what the hell?
Yeah. It's a lot of people have a lot of money in a lot of other people's pockets.
I know.
Yeah, it's a shame, but we'll get there. Hopefully, right? But yeah, no, real shame.
What?
Sorry.
Yeah. Just a question about heat Can you use them to heat other rooms? Can you actually use the heat pump to pump water into, say,
Talk about
a
hydronic.
bedroom that's on the south side of your house that doesn't get any sun? Can you?
So you're talking about hydronics?
Yeah, hydronics.
Yeah, you
Can you use them for hydronics?
Yeah, you can. Again, it's quite expensive to install, but it's definitely possible. But you know, the economics don't really stack up. It's going to be probably cheaper to just put a split system in instead. But again, everyone's different. If you've got the budget and that's what you like and that's what you want to do, it's definitely possible. Yeah.
So put a split system, put a second unit in another hut into like a bedroom area inside of the house. Obviously, condenser's got to be updated, the outside unit.
So you want 2 indoor units for one out?
You've got one and you want to say get a second unit put in a bedroom zone.
Unless it's already a multi-split outdoor unit, you have to upgrade it.
Yeah.
They are different. Yeah.
Quite some years ago, I had a solar hot water put in, in addition to my PV cells, and it worked fine for quite some time, and then it started to leak, and the plumber's quote for replacing the cylinder and probably the tubes on the roof didn't stack up, and all that I'm using now is what was the instantaneous gas boost is now my sole source of hot water. And it's fine for 2 people. Would I be still eligible for the rebates that you've talked about?
Yeah. You can get the solar hot water rebate in Solar Victoria. I'm assuming that solar hot water heater is older than 3 years.
Oh, a long time.
Yeah, you can. You can 100% get that $1,000 rebate. Yeah.
We love our ducted
Sorry.
heating. Love the ducted heating.
You've got the gas up.
Yeah. And is it wise to replace the heating unit so you still the ducted feel, or you look at? Because I've got a very, very big open roof.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It's definitely possible to do. You know, go reverse cycle ducting. But like I touched on in the presentation, it's pretty expensive to do. Bearing in mind that new rebate I touched on, they will offer more subsidy to those that are doing that because of recognition of how much it is. So if you're considering it, wait and see how much you can claim through this new rebate. We're still waiting on the government, really annoying. But it might be $4,000 for ducted reverse cycle. So a substantial chunk. But again, it's not going to be as efficient as those single split systems or multi-split systems. But totally understand people have their own wants and needs. So you know, if you want to go for it, it's going to cost a bit more. And it's going to cost a bit more to run. But it's still better than gas.
Yeah, you need the room outside as well.
Yeah.
What's the most efficient way to cook in an oven? Convection, microwave, or electric oven?
Oh, I'm not too sure. Yeah, not a gas oven, basically.
Microwave is very efficient. If you can use the microwave for something, do something with it.
Yep, sorry.
I'm probably a very dumb woman, but how much sun do you actually need to generate power on your solar system?
How much sun? I mean,
Do you need actual direct sun?
no. But obviously, direct sunlight's going to make more energy.
Like, would we be creating any energy today?
Yeah.
We would be.
Yeah. Yeah. Not as much as a pure, 12 o'clock on a pure sunny day, blue skies. We're obviously going to produce way more, but there's still UV radiation coming
So
through.
that the light still creates some
Yeah,
power.
correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because in Ballarat we get a lot of cloudy days.
Yeah. I guarantee you, we get more in England. People still install solar there.
My diary says we've had cloud for 21 days.
Yeah. But again, we probably had cloud for 210 days in England, but people still install solar and get power there. So this is the country for solar. It's cheap. There's sun. You're always going to have power during the day, unless it's like a crazy storm where it's completely jet black. Then you might not produce anything, but that's pretty rare, right? But yeah, you'd be producing energy today. You'd be producing energy on overcast days, and even more on sunny days. Yeah.
go maybe 2 more questions.
One thing you haven't mentioned at all is batteries.
Yeah.
I wonder if you've got any comments on
Sure,
that.
I got a lot of comments on batteries, and there's a reason why I didn't mention it really, because it's such a topic of debate at the moment, is batteries, and so solar batteries, not many people see a return investment at the moment on these solar batteries. What I recommend to people that call me up, I say, get your solar installed and make sure you get a battery-ready inverter installed, so you can add a battery in 5 years when that price comes down. Like, we're really expecting 2025 to see these battery prices start decreasing, and that's mainly due to the boom in EVs that's happening as we speak. And 2025 is when that cut-off between EVs and internal combustion engine is going to cross over. So EV will become 100% more economically viable than an internal combustion car. And that's when you'll just see a crazy decrease in these lithium-ion cell batteries, right? So that's why I tend to avoid talking about them so much, because everyone's different and people have their reasonings for installing these technologies. So if you've got budget and you want to be off-grid and you want to really get rid of your dependence on fossil fuels, sure, install a battery. But if you're thinking from an economic point of view, you probably won't see a return on investment just yet. So make sure you get a battery-ready inverter, and then you're ready to install one later. Yeah. And also things like community batteries as well. So you might not need them.
Maybe one more question if somebody. Yeah.
The rise of power, what do you see that 25%, 50% in the near future? Or?
Yeah, power's going to keep going up, and like I was touching at the start, there's gas prices going up as well. So like I touched on that solar section, the best option is to make as much energy yourself from your own roof as you can. That will be the cheapest option for you. So if you're not paying any transmission costs, you're going straight from your roof to your switchboard. By far the best option.
Thank you. And I believe that you've all been given post-it notes. We'd like 2 questions from you. What was your best takeaway from today? And something that you plan to do differently after this session. So if you want to think about those, write them on the post-it notes and come up and stick them up.
So there's 2 at the back, 2 at the front.
It's 2 at the back and 2 at the front.
And spare pencils and everything.
So thank you again to Lloyd. And I'd like to thank you all again for coming, and also to the organisers. Sally? Sally's done a lot of work. This is the 3rd housing forum that Sally's organised over the last 12 months, which has been amazing. And thank you also to the rest of the BREAZE volunteers, Pat, Sue, Campbell and Mary up the back as well.